Welcome back. I'm Lenny McAllister. You're watching the Pittsburgh Cable News Channel. Dr. Shaveen Yelkatin, you study this stuff at CMU, and you bring up a very interesting point. When we start talking about the unemployment rate versus the quote-unquote real unemployment rate, there starts to be this partisan tone to it, because there's certain things that may or may not be taken into consideration. We were talking about the labor participation rate during the break and how that number has been coming down since 2000, but many people like to point to it now during the Great Recession. That makes me ask this question when it comes to both the recession and the recovery. Is this more of a economic situation that we're facing, or is it an economic situation that is also a political situation, where this is a political recovery, a political recession, and the politics have been blocking where we could or should be going over the last several years from the official end of the recession on through?
The most sort of effective way politics can definitely block any type of economic growth is to raise uncertainty, and is it to be in the way of any type of productivity increases. Doesn't mean you don't want regulation. Some regulation is necessary, but yes, you can create a recession out of completely politics, but I don't think that's really what's going on right now. I mean, I think what is going on, apart from the uncertainty of certain regulations, for example, what's going to happen with the banking system and so on, what is going on right now, I think, is that these statistics have always been volatile. Perhaps less so during the 90s, but certainly were volatile before then, before the Great Moderation. But now everybody takes a different cut of those statistics, and you can easily make your point, whichever side of the political fence you are, by showing a different cut of that particular series you want to look at. For example, employment numbers. We talk about the fact that labor participation has been falling, but if you look at the date, it started falling in 2000, not during the Great Recession. So that's a long-term trend, and people confuse long-term trends with short-term fluctuations.
But hold on, you said something that was very curious to me, and I'm going to bounce it off of Rob, because Rob was sitting beside you. You may not have heard it. I'm certain that you did. You were sitting right beside her. The Great Moderation is what you're referring to this period as the Great Moderation?
No, not this very last sort of 10 years. I'm talking about the Great Moderation, which started after inflation was basically controlled, where we had decent growth, but not that many recessions, and not very long or deep recessions. Right now we're seeing a lot of volatility, but that's again relative to what we saw in the 90s and so on. So we have to sort of, if we take a longer term perspective, is this volatility 80,000 in one month, 240,000 jobs the next month? Is that really out of the realm of what we've seen if we take a longer view? Probably not.
So did 2008 happen as a side issue from this longer-term trend where the American economy was being redefined? We got spoiled after World War II all the way up to, let's say, maybe the mid-90s, and now we're going to go through this 25-year period of time where we have to recalibrate all of our expectations. Is that where we are as an economy now? And this is going to be that new normal based on something that had started as far back as, let's say, the year 2000? Is that what we're really dealing with at this point?
I think so, until the next internet comes along. I mean, we're not in the Industrial Revolution anymore. The 90s came and the internet happened. And so that was just an uncontrollable train that created a lot of growth in this country. Now a lot of that growth is built out. Until the next thing happens, which I wish I knew what that was, and then we could all go to the Cayman Islands and really reap the benefits of it. Until that happens, I don't know what really makes this shoot off like a rocket.
And what's scarier about that, Rob, and Lou, I'm going to bounce this off of you before I come back to them. What's scarier is, if we're waiting for that next thing to happen, is the United States situated to capitalize at an optimal level for that next thing, considering the world has shrunk, China has caught up, India has caught up, other countries have caught up, we've shipped countries overseas, and we've been weakened from an infrastructure standpoint and an education standpoint. Are we positioned to take advantage of that in 2015 like we may have been in the 1990s?
I don't think we're as positioned today. However, we do have a lot of capacity. But this is what's going on in Europe too right now. That's why they have negative interest rates. There's a lot of capacity out there. And until you get that economy stimulated in some way, shape, or form, we're not going to have any real progress. I think, Bill Gross and the PIMCO folks came along with the new normal of 0 to 2% growth long term, and lo and behold, it was maybe a little bit premature, but that's kind of where we're at. We're just not a lot of great growth at this point in time. And until you have that stimulus, whatever it is, whether it's Fed manufactured, although I think monetary policy is a great short-term solution, it's not a long-term. Fiscal policy is probably, and whether that's spending, whether it's higher taxes, lower taxes, whatever the case might be, that needs to be put in place. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's saying, hey, we need to cut taxes or we need to raise taxes. There's around the edges. They're little here, little bits here and there. They're talking about small percentages, no real effect. And then we're going to really have a problem population-wise here, demographics. Jeremy Siegel out of Wharton has had numerous illustrations where we start running into problems with Social Security 2065. He says we only need 178 million immigrants to replace the paid workers. It's not going to happen. It happened in the late 1880s to the 1920s.
That's a completely different world.
But maybe that's what we're going to go through that next cycle. Who knows?
But that's the politics of it. We waited too long to fix Social Security. We could have fixed Social Security 10, 15 years ago when we knew it was actually going to go bust. And then the changes we had to make in terms of benefits and taxes would have been smaller. Sure. But you just push the ball down the line, down the path, and now it's just much harder to fix it, and it's going to require some generations or some folks to have to, bear a bigger burden. Well, but that's what we do. That's the political sides of things, right? It's not that we don't have, as economists, some solutions to the problems. It's just politically implementing those solutions is very hard.
Fantastic. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation with them, and we're going to ask the question: have we redefined the gold medal? What do I mean by that? What do I mean about winning the race? Stick around. I'll tell you when we come back here on Night Talk with the Point.